But Hal, joining us now with more, Fox News contributor and former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. You know, Speaker Gingrich, it's always a pleasure to hear your wisdom. And at a moment in history where Republicans, we control the House, that's it. We don't have the Senate, we don't have the presidency, and we know elections are about choice. How does the House, under newly elected Speaker Mike Johnson, who I sat across from, was very impressed by, how does the House give the American people a choice, illustrate a contrasting agenda to Biden? What should they be doing?
Well, I think they're doing a lot of it. I think that if you look at the bills they've been passing, aid to Israel, but offset by cutting money out of the Internal Revenue Service, a series of steps, a very strong parental rights bill that virtually every Democrat voted against. I think there are a lot of steps they can take, but you also have to be realistic. I think what Speaker Johnson decided was that keeping the government open was the practical next step, given where they were and the mess that they'd been in. And I suspect that was right. Now they're going to have some big fights over appropriations. But in the long run, there are a lot of other things the House Republicans are doing that are going to end up mattering. The fact is that the Biden family increasingly looks like, in a newsletter recently, I called them the Delaware Sopranos. We get more evidence every week from people like Chairman Comer and Chairman Jordan and Chairman Smith. Every single week, we're getting more evidence that this is just a family of crooks. And that's an important job which would not be happening if the House Republicans didn't have a majority. So I think you're going to see both the process of legislation and the process of investigation moving forward. But let me also be clear. If Biden can't solve the challenge with Israel, the challenge with Ukraine, the challenge on the border, the challenge with fentanyl, the challenge with crime, the challenge with prices going up everywhere. Calista and I were just out shopping yesterday, and I mean, the degree to which grocery prices keep going up affects every single American. It's not about polling. It's not about advertising. It's about pain.
Yeah, Newt, and the famous old adage is it's the economy, stupid. We've all heard that. But, the counter argument to that is the economy didn't seem to have as much of an effect in the midterms as we would have hoped. But is it a different beast when you're talking about a presidential election? Do people more directly tie the economy to the sitting president? Will it matter in a way that perhaps it didn't in the midterms?
Well, I think I've done a lot of work on what happened in the midterms and what happened just a week ago. And part of my conclusion is that Republicans do not yet understand the scale of the Democratic machine. When you take the Service Employees Union, you take the Teachers Union, you take the left-wing activist groups, you take billionaires like Soros, the total weight, if you go state U.S. Senate race by U.S. Senate race, for example, or narrow House races, or in Virginia, some of the legislative races, we're just not big enough. We're like a mid-sized college team in the Super Bowl. And we're going to have to really get a grip this year on what are we going to do to offset the sheer weight of left-wing money, which is desperately trying to retain control for a practical reason. Joe Biden is spending $6 trillion, $200 billion annually.
Wow.
Now, if you're a left-wing union or a left-wing interest group, losing control of $6.2 trillion gets you pretty darn motivated. And that's a big part of what's going on.
That's a fascinating description. Now, what happens when you put what you just described, that massive operation, and combine it with mail-in balloting, which people might not realize, but in a place like Nevada, they've codified their COVID-era mail-in ballot laws, mass mail-out voting to all of their voter rolls. So what happens when you make that combination?
Well, I think it's very dangerous for the Republicans and very dangerous for the country. What you have today is a nationwide machine on the left, a machine made up of interest groups. I mean, for example, the New York City Democrats are going to be asking for billions to pay for Joe Biden's illegal immigrants. Billions. And they're going to want the money. The city of Chicago, the mayor's going to want billions. You go across the whole country. And what you see is interest group after interest group that's going to want the money. What you have on the Republican side are people who are really worried about the budget. They really want to get to a balance. They want to save Social Security and Medicare. Well, all those things are a direct threat to the interest groups on the left. Now, the difference in a presidential race, particularly if Donald J. Trump's involved, is he is such a huge figure. He is not a candidate. He is the champion of millions of Americans, the leader of a movement, very different than anything we've seen in most of American history. He can rise above no matter how much money the left has. He has the capacity to reach the American people despite them. And you have to say, as of tonight, he's certainly going to be the nominee, and the odds are much better than even maybe 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 that he'll be the next president, which, as it sinks in, is going to drive the left crazy.
There's no doubt. He has a movement like we've never seen, which is why they must be deprogrammed, in the words of Hillary Clinton. Speaker Gingrich, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.